Jake Morrison stood at the center of the largest room he had ever seen. The walls stretched up so high that he could barely see the ceiling. Around him sat thousands of aliens, each one different from the next. Some looked like giant insects, with shiny shells. Others were made of what seemed like living crystal. A few looked almost human, but their skin was blue or green or covered in scales. All of them were staring at him with hatred in their eyes. Jake had been Earth's ambassador to the Galacxy for 5 years. He thought he had done a good job. He had made trade deals that brought new technology to Earth. He had prevented 3 wars between human colonies and alien worlds. He had even helped solve a food crisis on a planet called Vex Prime. But now, standing in this massive courtroom, he realized none of that mattered. The judge was a creature that looked like a floating jellyfish made of light. When it spoke, its voice echoed from every direction at once. The Galactic Council will now hear the charges against the species known as humanity. The judge announced. A tall alien with skin like tree bark stepped forward. Jake recognized him as the representative from the Zenthari Empire. The Zenthari controlled over 200 worlds and had been part of the galaxy's government for 3,000 years. Honored Council, the Zenthari began. Humanity has broken our laws 17 times in the past 10 years. They build weapons when we tell them to focus on peaceful growth. They explore space systems we have marked as dangerous. They refuse to follow our guidance on how to develop their technology. Jake wanted to speak up, but the rules said he had to wait until all the accusations were finished. He clenched his fists and stayed silent. Another alien stood up. This one looked like a giant slug with 6 arms. Humanity discovered faster-than-light communication 3 years ago, the slug said. We asked them to share this technology with the Council. They refused. They said it was for their own defense only. That's not true, Jake whispered to himself. They had offered to share the technology, but only if other species shared their medical advances with Earth. The Council had refused. More aliens spoke up. Each one had a complaint about humanity. They said humans were too aggressive. They said humans asked too many questions. They said humans wouldn't accept their place in the galaxy's order. The worst accusation came from a creature that looked like a walking crystal. Humanity has established colonies in 12 systems without permission from the Council. When we told them to leave, they refused. They said these systems were empty, and they had the right to settle there. Jake knew this was the real reason for the trial. The Galacxy had rules about which species could settle on which worlds. Older species got first choice. Newer species like humanity were supposed to wait for permission. But humans had found beautiful, empty worlds and decided to build homes there anyway. Finally, it was Jake's turn to speak. He walked to the center of the room and looked up at the thousands of alien faces staring down at him. Everything you've said is true, he began. We did build weapons. We did explore forbidden systems. We did refuse to share our technology. And we did settle on worlds without your permission. A low murmur went through the crowd. They seemed surprised that he wasn't trying to deny the charges. But let me tell you why we did these things, Jake continued. We built weapons because 3 different species attacked our outer colonies. We explored dangerous systems because we wanted to make sure they were really dangerous before we sent settlers there. We kept our communication technology secret because every time we've shared something with you, you've used it to watch us and control us. His voice grew stronger as he spoke. And yes, we settled on empty worlds without asking permission because they were empty. No one lived there. No one had lived there for thousands of years. We found dead rocks and turned them into homes for millions of humans. The Zenthari representatives stood up. This is exactly why humanity cannot be trusted. They think they can ignore our laws just because they don't like them. Your laws are Designed to keep new species weak and dependent, Jake shot back. You want us to stay on Earth and buy everything we need from you. You want us to ask permission before we take a single step into space. You want us to be your servants, not your equals. The jellyfish judge floated higher in the air. Humanity will now be silent while the council votes. Jake watched as alien after alien pressed buttons on their voting devices. The results appeared on a massive screen behind the judge. The numbers climbed higher and higher. 100 votes for Exile. 200 votes. 500 votes. When the counting was done, 731 species had voted to exile humanity from the galaxy. Only 43 had chosen not to vote at all. Not a single species had voted against the exile. The council has spoken, the judge announced. Humanity is hereby exiled from galactic civilization. All human worlds and colonies must remain within 50 light years of Earth. Any human ship that crosses this boundary will be destroyed. All trade with humanity is forbidden. All diplomatic contact is ended. Jake felt like someone had punched him in the stomach. You're making a mistake, he said. Humanity has contributed more to galactic peace and prosperity in 10 years than most species do in a century. Humanity has contributed chaos and disruption, the Zenthari replied. The galaxy will be better off without you. The judge's voice echoed through the chamber one final time. This trial is concluded. Humanity has 24 hours to begin withdrawal to their designated zone. As Jake walked out of the courtroom, he pulled out his communication device and sent a message to Earth. The vote is final. We're on our own now. He didn't know it yet, but those words would change everything. The galaxy had just made the biggest mistake in its long history. They had given humanity exactly what it needed to become something greater than they ever imagined. They had given them a reason to prove everyone wrong. 3 years had passed since the galaxy turned its back on humanity. Dr. Elena Vasquez stood in her laboratory on Terra Station, looking at the test results that would have shocked every alien species in the galaxy. The barrier they had built around human space was supposed to be a prison. Instead, it had become humanity's greatest teacher. Elena picked up her tablet and walked to the main conference room. The emergency council was meeting again, just like they did every week. These 7 people now made all the important decisions for humanity. No more politicians arguing for months. No more committees that never got anything done. Just smart people solving problems as fast as they could. Admiral Lisa Carter sat at the head of the table. She used to command just one ship. Now she was in charge of every human military force in the galaxy. Her gray hair was pulled back tight, and her eyes were sharp as she studied the reports in front of her. What do you have for us today, Elena? She asked. Elena connected her tablet to the big screen on the wall. Charts and numbers filled the display. The alien technology we've been studying is giving us results we never expected. Every time they strengthen the barrier around us, we learn something new about how their tech works. Captain Ryan Brooks leaned forward in his chair. He commanded the flagship Endeavor, the most powerful ship in the human fleet. Are you saying the prison they built is actually helping us? That's exactly what I'm saying, Elena replied. Think about it. For 3 years, we've had alien technology right at our doorstep, scanning everything we do, trying to keep us contained. We've been able to study it, reverse engineer it, and improve on it. She changed the screen to show pictures of new human inventions. We've built better engines than anything in the galactic database. Our weapons are more accurate and use less power. Our shields can stop attacks that would destroy alien ships. Admiral Carter nodded slowly. And we did all this because we had to. No one was going to sell us spare parts or teach us how to fix things. We had to figure it out ourselves. Governor Pete Johnson spoke up from his chair near the window. He ran the colony on New Sacramento, which had grown from 50,000 people to over 2 million since the Exile began. It's not just technology. Our people are different now, too. He stood up and walked to the window that looked out at the space station's main corridor. Thousands of people walked by every day, all of them working on something important. Crime. On my world has dropped to almost zero, Pete continued. People don't steal because everyone has what they need. People don't fight because they're all working toward the same goal. We're not just surviving anymore. We're thriving. Commander Amy Rodriguez pulled up her own files on the screen. She ran the intelligence division, which meant she knew everything. That was happening in human space. The outer colonies are reporting the same thing. Haven's Rest solved their water shortage by building machines that can pull moisture from asteroid ice. Liberty Point figured out how to grow food in underground farms that produce 3 times more than anything on Earth. She clicked to another screen showing population numbers. Every single human colony is growing. People are healthier, smarter, and more motivated than they were before the Exile. We're not the same species that got kicked out of the galaxy 3 years ago. Dr. Marcus Webb joined the meeting by video link from his research station at the edge of human space. His wild hair and excited expression made him look like he hadn't slept in days. "I've got something that's going to change everything," he announced. Everyone turned to look at the screen. Marcus was known for making big discoveries, but he sounded more excited than usual. "The barrier around our space isn't just keeping us in," he explained. "It's also keeping information out. The aliens don't know what we're doing in here. They think we're slowly dying without their help and their trade. They have no idea how much we've advanced." Admiral Carter leaned back in her chair. "That could be useful." "It gets better," Marcus continued. "I've been studying the barrier technology for 2 years now. I think I know how to build our own version, one that works better than theirs." Elena felt her heart start beating faster. "What are you saying, Marcus?" "I'm saying we could leave any time we want. And when we do, they won't be able to track us or stop us. We'll be invisible to their sensors." The room went quiet. Everyone was thinking about what this meant. Captain Brooks was the first to speak. "So we could send ships outside the barrier without them knowing?" "Not just ships," Marcus replied. "We could send entire fleets. We could explore the galaxy, set up hidden bases, gather intelligence. They would never know we were there." Governor Johnson sat back down, looking thoughtful. "The question is, what do we do with this ability?" Admiral Carter stood up and walked to the big window that showed the stars beyond the station. "The galaxy threw us out because they were afraid of us. They thought we were dangerous and unpredictable." She turned back to face the group. "They were right to be afraid, but not for the reasons they thought." Commander Rodriguez pulled up star maps showing the galaxy beyond their prison. "Intelligence reports say the galaxy isn't doing well without U.S. Trade wars are breaking out between species that used to be allies. Crime is up everywhere. There are conflicts starting in 17 different sectors. They're learning that we weren't the problem," Helena said quietly. "We were part of the solution." Admiral Carter walked back to the table and placed her hands on it, looking at each person in the room. "For 3 years, we've been building something new. We've become stronger, smarter, and more united than any species in galactic history. The question is, what do we do with that strength?" Pete Johnson smiled for the first time in the meeting. "We show them what they gave up when they exiled." "U.S. And how do we do that?" Amy asked. Admiral Carter's expression grew serious. "We remind them that humanity doesn't stay down when you knock us over. We get back up, and we come back stronger than before." The meeting ended with everyone knowing that humanity was about to enter a new chapter. The exile was almost over, but not because the galaxy was inviting them back. It was ending because humanity was ready to take their place in the galaxy, whether the aliens wanted them or not. The prison had become a forge, and what came out of it would reshape everything. Dr. Marcus Webb stood in his laboratory on Galileo Station, staring at a machine that looked like a metal box with glowing blue lights. The box was no bigger than a suitcase, but what it could do would change everything. For 6 months, Marcus had been working on this project in secret. He had told the Emergency Council that he was close to a breakthrough, but he hadn't told them how close. He wanted to be absolutely sure before he raised their hopes. The machine hummed quietly as it powered up. Marcus checked the readings on his computer screen one more time. Everything looked perfect. He took a deep breath and pressed the activation button. The barrier around Galileo Station simply disappeared. Marcus looked out the window at the stars that had been blocked from view for 3 years. For the first time since the Exile began, he could see the galaxy beyond human space. More importantly, the galaxy couldn't see him. He quickly activated his communication system and sent a message to Earth. Emergency Council meeting required immediately. I have something to show you. 2 hours later, holographic images of the 7 council members appeared in Marcus's lab. Admiral Carter looked tired but alert. Governor Johnson appeared to be calling from his office on New Sacramento. Dr. Vasquez was still in her lab coat, suggesting she had been pulled away from her own experiments. This better be important, Marcus, Admiral Carter said. We've got supply convoys to organize and 3 colony expansions to approve. Marcus smiled and gestured toward his window. Take a look outside. The council members looked confused until they realized what they were seeing. Stars, open space, no shimmering barrier blocking their view. How is this possible? Elena asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Marcus picked up the small machine and held it up for everyone to see. This little device is generating a field that's completely invisible to alien sensors. It's not just hiding us from their detection systems. It's making us invisible to every piece of technology they use to maintain the barrier. Captain Brooks leaned forward in his chair. Are you saying we can leave the barrier zone? I'm saying we never needed their permission to leave, Marcus replied. The barrier was designed to keep ships from getting out, but it was also designed to be maintained by their technology. If we can hide from that technology, the barrier can't see us to stop us. General Kate Sullivan, who had been quiet during most council meetings, suddenly became very interested. What's the range on this device? That's the beautiful part, Marcus said, setting the machine back down on his workbench. The field can be expanded to cover anything from a single person up to an entire fleet of ships. And the best part is, the bigger we make it, the more power we can draw from the barrier itself to maintain it. Commander Rodriguez was already thinking about the intelligence possibilities. We could send scout ships into alien space without them knowing. We could do more than that, Admiral Carter said slowly. We could go anywhere in the galaxy. Marcus nodded enthusiastically. The alien governments have been telling their people that humanity is slowly dying in exile. They've reduced their military patrols around our space by 60%. They think we're no longer a threat. Governor Johnson laughed, but there was no humor in it. They have no idea what we've become. Show us how it works, Admiral Carter ordered. Marcus activated a holographic display that showed the space around Galileo Station. Watch the sensor readings from the barrier maintenance systems. The display showed dozens of alien sensors pointing toward the station, all of them reading empty space. Then Marcus turned off his device. Immediately, alarm signals started flashing on the alien sensors as they detected the research station. They know we're here now, Marcus said, turning the device back on. The alarm stopped as the station disappeared from their sensors again. How long before they investigate the alarm? Amy asked. They won't, Marcus replied. These sensors go off randomly all the time. Space dust, solar flares, equipment malfunctions. They stopped responding to brief alerts months ago. Admiral Carter stood up in her office on Earth, even though the others could only see her hologram. Marcus, I need you to make more of these devices. As many as you can. Already working on it, he said. I can have 50 units ready in 2 weeks. What's the plan? Pete asked. Admiral Carter was quiet for a moment, thinking. We need to know what's happening in the galaxy. 3 years is a long time. Political situations change. Military strengths shift. Before we make any big moves, we need intelligence. She turned to look at each council member. Amy, I want you to organize reconnaissance missions. Small ships, minimal crews, maximum stealth. We need to know what every major species is doing, where their fleets are positioned, and how their governments are functioning. Commander Rodriguez was already taking notes. How many systems should we scout? All of them, Admiral Carter replied. Every major world, every military base, every trade route. I want to know more about the current state of the galaxy than any alien government does. Captain Brooks raised his hand. What about our own preparations? If we're planning to make contact with the galaxy again, we need to be ready for any response. That's why we're going to take this slowly, Admiral Carter said. We observe first. We learn what we're dealing with. Then we decide how to proceed. Elena had been quiet during most of the discussion, but now she spoke up. There's something else we should consider. The technology that's allowed us to break free of the barrier could be shared with other species. What do you mean? Pete asked. Think about it, Elena continued. We're not the only species that's been pushed around by the big galactic powers. There are probably dozens of smaller civilizations that would benefit from this technology. Marcus nodded eagerly. She's right. The barrier technology isn't just used to contain us. It's used to control trade routes, limit exploration, and keep smaller species dependent on the major powers. Admiral Carter smiled for the first time in the meeting. So we're not just breaking free from our prison. We're potentially breaking the chains that bind half the galaxy. The aliens created this situation when they exiled us, General Sullivan said. They forced us to become self-reliant and innovative. Now they're going to learn what happens when you give humans a challenge. And 3 years to solve it. The meeting ended with each council member having specific tasks. Amy would organize the intelligence gathering. Marcus would build more stealth devices. Elena would research which alien technologies could be improved with human innovations. As the holograms faded and Marcus was alone in his lab again, he looked out at the stars beyond the barrier. The galaxy had no idea that humanity was about to return. But this time, they wouldn't be coming back as the same species that had been exiled. They would be coming back as something the galaxy had never seen before. A human civilization that had learned to thrive without anyone's help or permission. The exile was about to end, but not because the galaxy was ready to welcome humanity back. It was ending because humanity was ready to take their place in the galaxy, whether the aliens wanted them or not. Captain Steve Martinez watched the alien cargo ship through his ship's view screen. The vessel was huge, carrying enough medical supplies to treat millions of people. According to his intelligence reports, those supplies were headed to the core. Worlds where the richest aliens lived and already had the best healthcare in the galaxy. Meanwhile, 3 systems away, the colony world of Keth Prime was dealing with a plague that had killed thousands. They had begged the Galactic Council for help, but their request had been denied because they couldn't afford to pay for the medicine. Steve made his decision. Bring us alongside the cargo ship, he ordered his crew. Activate the stealth field and prepare for a peaceful transfer. The human ship Defiance moved silently through space, completely invisible to the alien vessel's sensors. Steve's team had done this operation 12 times in the past month, and they had perfected the process. Lieutenant Sarah Kim worked at the communication station. "I'm sending them the standard message now, Captain." The message was simple and always the same. "This is the Human Relief Force. We are transferring your cargo to those who need it more. No harm will come to your crew if you cooperate." The alien. Captain's response came through the speakers, his voice shaking with fear and confusion. "Who are you? How are you here?" "Humans are supposed to be contained in the Exile Zone." "That's not your concern," Steve replied calmly. "Shut down your engines and prepare for cargo transfer. You have 5 minutes." Within an hour, the medical supplies were loaded onto human ships and on their way to Keth Prime. The alien cargo vessel was left undamaged, with its crew unharmed and a message in their computer systems. Cargo redirected to Keth Prime Emergency. Relief. Thank you for your contribution to galactic humanitarian efforts. This was happening all across the galaxy. Human ships, invisible to alien sensors, were systematically redirecting supplies from the wealthy core worlds to colonies and species in need. Food shipments meant for alien pleasure worlds were ending up on planets dealing with famine. Advanced technology that was being hoarded by powerful species was finding its way to smaller civilizations that could actually use it. The confusion was complete. No one could see the human ships. No one could track them. No one could stop them. Ambassador Jake Morrison, now operating from a mobile command ship called the Justice, watched the reports coming in from dozens of human vessels. In 3 months, they had solved more galactic problems than the Council had addressed in 3 years. "Status report," Jake said to his staff. Commander Nicole Foster, who had volunteered to lead the first reconnaissance missions, stood at the main display. 17 major humanitarian crises have been resolved through our intervention. Crime rates and systems receiving our aid have dropped by an average of 40%. 6 territorial disputes have been settled through our mediation. What about military resistance? Admiral Carter asked through the communication link from Earth. Almost none, Nicole replied. The major powers are too confused to organize a response. They don't know who's doing this or how to stop it. Some species think it's a new type of space pirate. Others believe it's divine intervention. Jake smiled at that. In a way, they're not wrong about the divine intervention part. The real test came when General Tony Phillips received orders to position human fleets around the hegemony worlds. The hegemony was the most powerful military alliance in the galaxy, controlling over 300 systems and commanding the largest fleet ever. Assembled. Tony had been skeptical when Admiral Carter gave him the mission. You want me to put ships in orbit around their most heavily defended worlds without being detected? That's exactly what I want, Admiral Carter had replied. It's time to show them that we could have conquered them any time we wanted. Now, as Tony sat in his command chair aboard the flagship Retribution, he watched as 50 human ships took positions around the 5 most important hegemony worlds. Each ship was invisible to enemy sensors, armed with weapons that could destroy anything in the alien fleet, and crewed by soldiers who had trained for 3 years for this moment. The demonstration was carefully planned. At exactly the same time, on all 5 worlds, the human ships would reveal themselves for exactly 60 seconds. Long enough to be detected and identified, but not long enough for the aliens to mount any kind of response. All ships report ready. Tony's communications. Officer announced. Execute the reveal, Tony ordered. Across the hegemony's most important worlds, human warships suddenly appeared on every sensor screen. The alien defense systems went crazy with alarm signals. Emergency meetings were called. Military commanders scrambled to understand how an entire fleet had appeared without warning. Then, just as suddenly as they had appeared, the human ships vanished again, but they left behind a message that was broadcast to every government building, every military base, and every communication network in hegemony space. We could have conquered you. Instead, we chose to protect you. Your choice what happens next. The message was signed by General Tony Phillips, Human Strategic Command. The response was immediate and panicked. The Hegemony Council went into emergency session. Military fleets were recalled from across their territory. Trade routes were shut down. For the first time in their history, the most powerful alliance in the galaxy was afraid. But the humans weren't done. Dr. Rachel Davis, now serving as humanity's chief diplomat, had been working on the next phase of the plan. She had spent months studying galactic politics, identifying which species had been mistreated by the major powers, and building a network of allies who were ready for change. Her first contact was with the Cillian Federation, a small group of worlds that had been bullied by the hegemony for decades. The Cillians had lost 3 colonies to hegemony expansion and had been forced to pay massive taxes on all their trade. Rachel's ship, the Diplomat, appeared in orbit around the Cillian homeworld without any warning. But instead of causing panic, her arrival brought hope. People of Cilia, Rachel broadcast to the planet below, humanity offers you friendship, protection, and the technology to defend yourselves against those who would oppress you. The proof came in the form of medical technology that reduced the Cillian infant death rate to 0 in 6 months. Agricultural equipment that doubled their food production. And most importantly, defensive weapons that could stop any hegemony. Attack. Within weeks, 47 different species had accepted human aid and protection. The galaxy's political structure, which had remained unchanged for thousands of years, was crumbling. The major powers that had exiled humanity were discovering that the galaxy they thought they controlled was full of species who had been waiting for someone strong enough to challenge the old order. Ambassador Morrison sent a message to the Galactic Council from his invisible ship. You voted to exile us because you thought we were the problem. You were wrong. We were the solution you were too afraid to accept. The message continued. For 3 years, you've tried to govern the galaxy without us. Crime is up 300%. 17 new wars have started. Trade efficiency has dropped by 40%. You've failed at every level. We don't want to rule you, the message concluded. We want to help you remember how to rule yourselves. But we'll do it on our terms, not yours. The galaxy that had confidently exiled humanity 3 years earlier was now begging for their return. But this time, humanity held all the power in the negotiations. The exile was ending, but not the way anyone had expected. Ambassador Jake Morrison walked into the same massive chamber where humanity had been condemned 3 years earlier. But this time, everything was different. This time, he wasn't alone. Behind him walked representatives from 47 different species. The Keth Collective, whose people had been saved by human medicine. The Cillian Federation, whose worlds were now protected by human technology. The miners of Vega Prime, who had tripled their production using human engineering. Dozens of smaller species who had found prosperity and security under human protection. The aliens in the chamber looked nervous. 3 years ago, they had confidently voted to exile humanity. Now they were facing a coalition they never could have imagined. The Xanthari representative, the same tree-like alien who had accused humanity of being too dangerous, stood at his podium with his crystalline skin flickering nervously. The hegemony delegates sat in their section, still shaken from the human fleet that had appeared around their worlds, took his place at the center of the chamber, and looked up at the thousands of alien faces. Some showed fear, others showed anger. A few showed what might have been respect. 3 years ago, you voted to exile humanity from galactic civilization. Jake began, his voice carrying clearly through the vast space. You said we were too dangerous, too unpredictable, too unwilling to follow your rules. He paused and gestured to the representatives standing behind him. These 47 species have a different opinion. Governor Pete Johnson stepped forward. He now represented not just New Sacramento, but the entire colonial alliance of human worlds. In 3 years of exile, human colonies have solved problems that this council couldn't fix in 3 centuries. We've ended famines, stopped wars, and brought prosperity to worlds you had written off as hopeless. Dr. Elena Vasquez activated a holographic display that filled the center of the chamber. Charts and graphs showed the dramatic changes that had occurred across the galaxy since humanity began their intervention. Crime rates in systems under human protection have dropped by an average of 70%, she announced. Agricultural production is up by 200%. Technological advancement in previously stagnant civilizations has increased by 500%. The Xanthari delegate stood up, his voice trembling with anger. You broke our laws. You violated the Exile order. You interfered with sovereign governments. Admiral Carter, now wearing the uniform of Supreme Commander of Human Forces, stepped forward. We broke laws that were designed to keep the weak powerless and the strong comfortable. We violated an exile that was based on fear rather than justice. We interfered with governments that were failing their people. She activated another display showing military statistics. During our exile, galactic conflicts increased by 300%. 17 new wars started. Trade disputes disrupted. Half the economy. Your system was failing, and you were too proud to admit it. A new voice spoke from the alien delegates. It was the representative from the aquatic worlds, a species that had remained neutral during the original exile vote. What do you want from us now? Revenge? Jake shook his head. We want partnership. We want to build something better than what existed before. Dr. Marcus Webb's image appeared on the main screen, broadcasting from his research station. We've developed technologies that could revolutionize galactic civilization. Faster-than-light travel that makes your hyperspace routes look like horse-drawn carriages. Medical advances that could extend lifespans by centuries. Communication networks that could connect every inhabited world in real time. And you're willing to share this technology? Ask the delegate from the Crystal Confederation. Under the right conditions, Jake replied. We propose a complete restructuring of galactic government. No more rule by the oldest and strongest species. No more keeping smaller civilizations dependent and weak. Commander Amy Rodriguez stepped forward with a document that would change everything. The new Galactic Charter provides for representation based on contribution, not age or military power. Every species gets a voice. Every world gets protection. Every civilization gets the chance to grow and prosper. The chamber erupted in arguments. The major powers were outraged at the thought of losing their privileged positions. The smaller species were excited about finally having real representation. The hegemony's chief delegate stood up, his blue skin flushed with anger. You can't just tear down a system that has maintained peace for 3,000 years. General Tony Phillips, broadcasting from his flagship, laughed at that. Peace? You call 17 active wars and rising crime across the galaxy peace? You call trade restrictions that keep entire species in poverty peace? What you call peace, we call stagnation, Admiral Carter added. The galaxy has been stuck in the same patterns for millennia because you've been too afraid of change. The Xanthari delegate tried one more time to rally opposition. Even if we agreed to these changes, how do we know humanity won't abuse their power just like every dominant species before them? Jake looked directly at the Xanthari. Because we've already had the power to abuse, and we chose not to. We could have conquered every major world in the galaxy over the past 6 months. Instead, we helped refugees, fed the hungry, and protected the weak. Dr. Rachel Davis stepped forward with representatives from the species humanity had aided. The humans didn't ask for anything in return for their help. They didn't demand tribute or territory. They simply helped because it was the right thing to do. The vote was called after hours of debate. This time, the numbers were very different from 3 years earlier. The major powers voted against the new charter, but they were outnumbered by the smaller species who had benefited from human intervention. The final count was 623 votes in favor of the new galactic government, 201 votes against, and 23 abstentions. Jake stood in the center of the chamber as the results were announced. The galaxy has spoken again, but this time it spoke for progress instead of fear. The Xanthari delegate made one final protest. This is not over. The major powers will not accept this change quietly. Admiral Carter smiled at that. You're welcome to try to change things back. But remember that humanity has spent 3 years learning how to defend ourselves and our allies. We're not the same species you exiled. As the session ended and the delegates began to leave, Jake remained in the chamber. The last time he had stood here, humanity had been alone and defeated. Now they were the leaders of a new galactic civilization. 10 years later, Ambassador Morrison would return to this same chamber as the first human president of the Galactic Council. The exile that was meant to destroy humanity had instead forged them into something the galaxy had never seen before. Leaders who served the weak instead of exploiting them. The rulebook that had governed galactic civilization for 3,000 years was officially destroyed that day. In its place rose something unprecedented, a government where every voice mattered, and every species had the chance to reach their potential. The galaxy had voted to exile Earth because they feared what humanity might become. They had been right to fear, but for all the wrong reasons. Humanity had become exactly what the galaxy needed, a species strong enough to protect the weak, and wise enough to know that true strength comes from lifting others up, not keeping them down. The exile was over. The real work of building a better galaxy was just beginning.